Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel, and especially this series I'm doing on this cute little art journal. This is the fourth video in my series. We made the book, then I did this wonderful little cover that looks very Egyptian, very leather, very distressed. I just love it. And today we're going to embellish every single page with collage from all those tissue prints that I made before. But before I go on to doing that, I just felt like there was a little bit too much faded white on this cover, and I wanted to enhance some of that yellow a little bit more. So I've just dabbed a little on my finger and I've wet it a little bit so that I don't have full strength. I want it to be I did spray the book cover first, and what I'm going for is just this Indian yellow, not the Nicolazo Gold full strength. So I'm just dabbing it on like a glaze and wiping off in those crevices. So it's just a few of those big molding paste patches that I wanted to enhance a little bit. They just seemed a little bit too dull. Again, I'm just using it as a very transparent glaze. It'll dry even more subtle. I think that's all it needed was that little bit. And who knows, by the end, after I finish all the tissue printing of the pages, I might find that I even need to do a little more with the cover. But right now, I think it's pretty close to being done. What I'm going to do is get all my stash of tissue prints because they are amazing. I just love them, and I can't wait now. The goal today is just to cover every single page because it'll take a while. So I want to just do a background, almost like an underpainting on every single page. But instead of doing an underpainting, I'm collaging, and the goal is just to do a start to get something covered on every single page, and then we'll see where we can go from there with embellishing and more collage at the next video. I just needed to do a little darker in that top corner to balance some of the darker. I'm happy with that. I think that's what it needed. I hope you agree. I love how some of those crevices show the detail from the stamps. So let's get started. Look at all these gloriously white pages ready to be collaged. I do have prints on the inside covers, but they are going to get covered over, and that's okay. I could have done it differently. I could have done the right page being collaged and used the left inside cover still stamped and then just put a glaze over it. But I just feel like I don't have very many pages in the book, so I want to go right ahead and collage them all. So what I'm looking for in my stash is some of them that are better suited for background pages, and then some of the other details will be better suited for accents later on in the next video. So I'm just pulling out ones that I think would be good overall backgrounds as an underpainting, if you will. These aren't all of them. I'll have to find a few more, but I'm going to start with these. I want to get a variety. I want each page to look completely different. Let's start with this one. I didn't want to start with anything too bold at the beginning, and who knows, I mean, it's quite subtle compared to the other pages that will happen, but it's a good start, and then I can decide once all the pages are done what I need to do to embellish further. So again, this is just considered an underpainting right now. It's going to take a whole video just to get all these pages glued down with collage. So what I'm doing is finding the middle point to fold. In some of these pages, with where the signature is stitched down with thread, with some of them, it doesn't work to put a whole collage all the way across that middle center fold line. So I have to do left and right pages. And on other cases, you'll see that I'll take a full sheet of tissue print and go all across left and right, including the middle fold. So it really depends on what the signature is like in the center of the book, how it folds back. I've sped up a lot of the work today. I hope you don't mind, but it's going to take a lot just to get all these pages done. So I've sped up any of the areas where I'm gluing things down because that's just time consuming. So there's my middle. And like I say, I want to put this in place so that it just reaches the middle. And then the other side will reach the middle, and it'll be easy to fold the book open and shut after that. So I'm going for a completely different effect on the right page. Again, this is I enjoy mixing and matching when I collage, and I don't mind that it doesn't continue from left and right. But what I will do with this right side is have it overlap slightly at the top there. There's some interesting detail, and I will let that overlap onto the left page. So wherever I'm going to fold, find edges and cut, I will fast forward that or crop it, edit it out completely so that you don't get too bored. So there's my cut piece. It's not completely cut on the right, but it's fairly close. I'm just finding that center fold line, and then I'm going to keep some of that top area and have it overlap. And where that area on the left overlaps, I want that to have an organic edge. So I'm using my wet paintbrush in wet. I'm using a clean paintbrush in clear water to use it as a cut line. And in the center, I'm going to cut with the scissors because I don't mind a nice straight cut line there. But with the top area that overlaps, I want a nice organic odd shape. I don't want it to look like a cut line. So I think that's kind of fun, kind of draws the eye from left and right and around the entire spread. When I say the word spread, I mean left and right pages. So let's get this one glued down. Some of that background stamping may or may not show up. See, I could just do left and right like that and have that background show up, but I find that's getting a bit too busy. I want to show the fun of these prints because I'm very happy with how the prints turned out. So I'm going to use matte medium throughout this book for gluing down and collaging my tissue prints. And because there's a lot of paint on this tissue print that I've selected, I have to put a very generous dose of matte medium because it's got to glue down the tissue, and the fact that the tissue's got a lot of heavy paint. I really want it to get absorbed and glued down to the page. I think it's best to start with the center line and make sure that the top edge is aligned with the edge of the page. And then the rest, I'll just spread it out because I haven't cut those other sides. I will cut those later once this dries to the page. So I'm just carefully, without pulling too hard, I did start off using that paint spreader to spread that down, but you've got to be really careful because sometimes, as it did right in that spot where I pointed, sometimes that can make little tears and holes. So I think it's best to use my hands to flatten things out and then use a flat brush like I have here to spread it around. And I'm adding more matte medium as well so that the top layer really gets extra glue and matte medium, and that way the whole thing stays nicely adhered to the page. When I do the brush and spread around glue, I always try to do from the middle outward so that I don't fold over any bits of the tissue print. So again, I'm putting a very generous coat, especially in the center. I sped this up, of course. If I didn't do all this editing and speeding up, this video would be 2 hours long. So I'm trying to spare you that agony. Making sure I dab firmly into the center and using my hands to flatten it. I love how that overlaps. It works. It gets wonky, funky, and fun. And again, who knows later on the next video where we go with this. But for now, again, my goal is just to get every page completely covered with a tissue print. Whenever I can, I try to tear the excess tissue, but you have to go towards the back, away from you. Otherwise, it tears away the front area. And you can only do this while it's still wet and if there's not too much paint on it. It doesn't work everywhere. Again, pulling away from you towards the back. I sped that up. You've got to do that carefully. And that now it was completely dry. I took my scissors and trimmed off all the edge. If I waited till the very end of the book, video to do all that, I wouldn't be able to see from front and back, both sides gluing prints onto this. I wouldn't be able to see where the edges of the pages are. So I'm just meticulously doing that on every page as it's dried. Here's a really fun one. I love, love, love this print. And it's already got that wonky oval on it. And I just think that this tells a story on its own. I might later not even have to do much to this page, this spread, because it is so bold and full of interest as it is. So I'm just trying to define the middle line and give it a fold. And again, folding to find the top edge. And then I have to cut that up. So right now I've got it as one piece. Again, this is a case where I can probably glue it down all the way over the fold line. There is a bit of a gap with these signatures. When the first page I did had the thread in it in the fold, and on this one it's the fold line of that full signature, and there's a bit of a gap in the very center where you can see the glue inside the binding area, right there. It's okay to put a lot of glue there and just use this as a full spread glue down. You might not understand that completely until you do it yourself, what I mean, but I'm trying my best to explain my choices. So I'm lining up the very center first, and I'll use that paint spreader to really get it into the groove, because there is a space there inside that binding area, and so I have to really make sure this gets right inside there. It pressed some of the tissue, so I have to pull that back and get it back in there. Now, getting it firmly is one thing, but making sure it doesn't stick to the page is another. And then I'm using my hand for the most part. So I'm only using the paint spreader now to force it into the groove, into where the binding area is. And the rest of the time I'm just using my fingers in my hand, and then I will get that flat paintbrush and continue adding matte medium to the outer surface to make sure this all stays glued down. I love this page. I'm pretty sure I won't have to do anything to it later. You never know. It's very, I love that color. It reminds me of Bedouin, North African, that beautiful navy blue that they have. Indigo blue, I love it. That Payne's gray is really amazing because it, depending on the intensity and how you water it down, look at, that's all one color. Depending on how watered down it gets brighter and brighter. I love that color. Again, these colors on these tissue prints are a lot more muted and organic looking than I normally use, but when I get to the next video, once I've embellished these pages, I can add brighter colors and really add pop to this book. But today it's going to be all of these prints, and it's not going to be very vibrant. It's going to be fairly subtle. But again, these are the underpaintings. Because that page was so dark, I thought I'd mix it up and do the next spread with a paler effect. There's a lot of white transparent area on this tissue print. I'm trying to decide how to deal with that. I know what I'll do. I'm going to paint the entire page with this iridescent bronze, which is very gold. and shiny. And then I will apply that print so that all those areas where it was white and transparent will show and reveal the gold underneath. So I had to protect, I put scrap bits of paper all around to protect the underpage. And now I'm going to paint this entire spread with my iridescent bronze. And because it goes dry on dry, it will dry fairly quickly. In fact, I sped this up, but I found it was drying even as I was still working on the page. Now I know that when I glue this tissue print over top with all that white transparent area, it's going to mute the brightness of this gold. But that's okay. Later on I can decide if I want to enhance that and paint more gold over top. So as much as this is going down very vibrant and shiny, that will get dulled by the tissue print. But I just wanted to put some gold in the background and mix things up a bit. It doesn't have to be perfect because I know it's going to get covered. Now that this is completely dry, I can glue on my print. You can already tell that it's going to pick up the detail below. I want to keep some of the gold page bright and shiny, so I'm going to use my wet brush again with clean water to isolate areas that I want to pull apart. And again, I did that so I can get an organic edge. Now I sped this up, but really when you do this, be very, very careful when you pull it apart. Because it's delicate. I think that's fun. Because I haven't glued it, it's only clinging to the page because of the water. It's a good time to check and see how it's going to look. So I want to protect the page underneath. It wasn't quite dry enough under there, so I have to be very careful that the white new page underneath doesn't stick to the previous page. I sped this up. I'm just putting the matte medium for now in the area that I need for this particular print. And again, before I paint down any of the left and right, I want to make sure that that center area gets pressed down into this center seam with the paint spreader. Oh, it's so delicate that it's really easy for this fine tissue to be pulled apart, so you have to be careful. So because that happened, I'm just making it make sense, pulling a little bit back that didn't need to be there. That's very organic and raw. If I don't like what happened there, I can always paint over it with the gold. Now, when I tore that bottom, you see I tore towards me instead of towards the back? I did that on purpose because I knew I wanted to lift that off, but I just want to show you that if I didn't want that to happen, that would have been a boo-boo. And while it's still wet, I'm just using my fingernail to scrape away the excess tissue because I want a nice organic edge. And if later on, I'll probably touch all of that up with gold paint so that I completely cover the tissue paper edges. For now, this is just I'm trying to be mindful of that back. I thought I'd better put plastic there instead of paper so that it doesn't stick. Now I want to do a completely different print on the right side, but they will be complementary. And I'm just keeping it gently on the top just to find my edges, where I want to cut straight lines, and then where I want to use my wet paintbrush technique to isolate. Because what I'm doing is with the scissors, I'm following those lines as if I'm following threads of that weave. So I don't mind cutting in that scenario, but over on this side, I want an organic edge. There are times to tear away and times to cut. Now, all of those areas that have white paint on it will stay white paint, but some of that tissue print has dulled. You can see that it's transparent, but it's not a very clean edge. So I will later on touch this up with gold. Because it really darkened, putting this matte medium down really darkened that gold. It makes it look dirty. So I'm going to be a perfectionist next time, in the next video, and all those transparent lines between the patches, I'm going to end up touching that up with the gold paint to make it shimmer and be bright again. And I love this basket weave. I think it's fun. So on the left is the negative of that stencil. On the right is the positive of it. And I'm just using my fingernail again to break away any of the tissue print paper that I don't want sticking out over the gold. So this looks really dirty and messy, but it will get fixed. So I will touch up all those negative areas with the gold later on. While it's drying, I put it upside down because the paper's sticking up on that edge, and I'm trying to keep them, during the day I keep them upside down like that. Not upside down, I just keep it tipped over and the pages fanning away from each other so that the pages don't stick together in the middle binding area. So now that it was really dry, this is a next day, I'm getting another tissue print, completely different. I like that detail on the edge. It's almost like borders and framing. I'm really, really quite pleased with this print in particular. I think it's one of my favorite. So I'm cutting the edges where it'll go along the top of the book. I think those framed, the wonky frame is quite fun. Now here's an area where I can't go all the way across again because of how the page folds. So I have to find the center line and then cut it so that I can glue down left and then right. I appreciate your support. I hate having to put that up there, but I like to remind you that if you want to see, especially with a series like this, if you want to get notified for the next video as it's posted, you have to subscribe, and then it shows up on your feed a little more readily than if you wouldn't have done it at all. So again, I like your support. Love your comments. Go ahead and give me comments if you like. I like to hear where you're from as well and what you do. Again, I'm speeding up anywhere where I can. This is a case where I didn't want a background to show through. I like this white. Again, I want these spreads to all be very different. They're all coordinated, but they're still all very different. So I do love exposing the white here. I don't know what I'll do next video once these pages are done, but I won't know until the very moment I open the page. And then I go by my gut instinct when I do things like this. My work is always intuitive. So I could think right now what I want to do, but the next time I do the video and I get back to this page, I might have a different instinct, something completely different that speaks to me. Oh, I'm very happy with this spread. This is my favorite. Love it. Love it a lot. I love how within all those negative spaces, those patches are different. They're iridescent, they're wonky, they change, they're not solid colors. When the pages are dry, not until they're dry, and if you're in between working on your book, I always dust them with baby powder. I've mentioned this in all my tiny book series. Put baby powder on there and let it sit so that those bindings don't stick together. If I go next week and do more embellishment over top, I can always take a wet wipe and wipe away any baby powder so that I can do more work on each page. This is fun. This is very different. I think the other one I didn't want because I already had a lot of white space on the previous one. So I'm going to go with this one. Again, I'm finding the top line because I'll use scissors to cut a straight line. I edited that for you. So I'm just finding the center fold line because this is going to be another left and right scenario. And as the book gets, as I work through towards the back of the book, those center fold lines are going to be more obvious with deeper canyons as you open the book. So I'll have to be very mindful when I glue down all the center areas of these tissue prints that it doesn't get lifted or ruined with the book opening and shutting. Now I've got a complementary print with a little less iridescent gold on it. And this one, I like the juxtaposition of the two of them, but the one on the right is slightly more green tinge, and the one on the left has more navy blue background dots and areas. So I thought, in order to join them together, why not cut away the middle part? And then when I glue it down, it'll make more sense. The transition's a little better. So I didn't have to worry about what I did was I didn't cut the center area because this has to overlap to the other side, and then the left page overlaps to this one. Get that paint spreader in and really press it firmly in the middle. Again, without letting it stick and cling to the paint spreader. And I'm just getting all this glued down, adding more glue over top because now I have to put a full page over top this side. But I'm glad I cut away that detail where the gold is because it defines the gold more, and it also distracts from the fact that the left side is more navy and the right side's more iridescent green. I think it worked. Very different. Each page is a completely different story. Now I'm pulling away towards the back, but I got in trouble right there, wanted to rip. So again, you got to be so careful. And when I decided that wasn't cooperating very well, I just decided to leave some of it. I can always cut that straighter when it dries. I just got the worst of it off. And I shifted that paper underneath so that it wouldn't cling to the edge. So now it was dry. All the edges of all the pages, see, that looked a little messy. All the pages, though, have been trimmed. Now I've got another one where that's an open basket weave, and it had a lot of white on it, but I wanted to, and I want to use it, but I want to do a similar thing as what I did with that gold page. I want to paint a blue background, and I want to get quite a light blue. I don't want that Payne's dark gray. So I started off with the one color, then I had to keep adding more lighter white, and this is the color I've ended up with. It's darker than it will end up being once I glue that tissue print over top that has all that tissue, that transparent tissue color. It's going to dull this blue a little bit. It's going to lighten it. I'm going to stick with this one. There's very subtle white paint where it looks like thread lines from the weave. And believe me, once this glued down, it's going to show up a little more obvious. because again, this tissue paper, which is transparent white, ends up getting more and more clear as it's glued down. So I'm really, really crossing my fingers that this white weave shows up. And yes, it does. Look at that. And it's making that background blue a little chalky. Completely different spread here, and I quite like it. I'm putting a lot of glue because I really want the more matte medium I put down, the more it activates that tissue paper and dissolves it. And then that allows more of the print that's left. Remember, this was a ghost print. That's why it's so chalky looking. It's a ghost print, and I quite like how chalky and distressed it looks. Here's another one. I've already cut the page. I'm running out of time here, so I wanted to get it all cut. I mean, I think you get the idea of what I'm doing here. I'm going to go right across this time on that center seam, so I'm making sure that I place this carefully at that point. What I'm going to do is the left side first. If I was to glue both left and right, I would have trouble right now. So I'll stop the gluing for the left side only, make sure that the paint spreader really puts that well inside the groove of the center, and then I pull that back and glue the right side. That's the best way to deal with a large area of tissue print, is to do one side then the other. And you can see the tissue wants to fold and buckle a little bit, so I'm just very carefully pressing that with my hand, and now I'm pressing it a little more firmly with the brush. And again, another coating of glue on the top. That's a fun back spread. That's going to be interesting. Who knows where I'm going to go from there, but it's a start. Very different. Again, all of these pages coordinate though, because they're made from the same two or three stencils and the bubble wrap. There's a very big gap. This is getting towards the other side of the book now, so there's a very big gap in the middle of the spread between the two spreads. You can see the binding inside the binding, so I have to deal with a left and right gluing down of the page again. I can't just glue this as one piece over top. I'm thinking, wouldn't it be fun to have some of it show a pattern inside those circles? So I'm going to leave the top row clear white, and I thought it'd be fun for the bottom half to pick up a print underneath. Again, I can't glue that down across the middle. It's too big of a gap, so I have to treat it as a left and a right. It's a very wide gap. I suppose I could have avoided that by making the book in the first place by pulling the threads a little tighter, but that's okay. If you keep, when you're building a book like that, if you keep the signatures a little bit loose, that allows me to open a book flat like I have now. If you've got it too tight, it's hard to open the book flat while you're working on it. So anyway, I've got the top upper sections cut and ready. Now I'm going to just glue this section to the very bottom half. So I'm just lining up where I need to cut it. And now I have all my components. I don't mind gluing straight across with the bottom part because it's just the bottom half, and I'll be mindful of how I get it inside that groove there in the middle. There's about a good 3/16 of an inch gap. I'm going to put a lot of glue in that middle area. Otherwise, that gap becomes a pocket of air, and even after the tissue dries, you could end up with a bubble. These are things you find out the hard way. So I'm putting a lot of glue in there. Going to line up the bottom edges and get that paint spreader out to flatten it inside that groove. Again, it's like a big crevice, a great big crevice there right now. So I had to spend a bit of time working on that and then spread that out. I don't want that to bubble up once it dries. Now I need to glue the entire rest of the page because I'm going to put right over top this entire spread those two new left and right prints. First one, then the other. And I'm purposely making a gap on the left and top as well, or the left, because it wouldn't reach otherwise. I'm leaving a gap. Actually, what I'm saying is I'm leaving a gap in the very center. I'm not touching the print right down in that center canyon. I'm calling it a canyon, the crevice, whatever. There, I'm keeping that as a gap. I can paint that with gold later on and cover it up and trick the eye into thinking that the page got glued right to the center. Same with the right. Purposely leaving a gap. That's too much of a gap, so I have to adjust it a bit. And I don't want that to end up being a stripe down the middle, that white stripe. I will fix that with gold paint after it's dry. I've got to put a lot of glue in the middle there, make sure that all that tissue gets flattened and dissolved into it. What I don't like is the dark, dirty areas where the gold is over top the navy. So I'm going to go, and especially in the middle there, I'm going to get rid of that middle stripe. So what I'm going to do, and I will edit this so you don't watch it all, but I'll get a start for you. I want to show you, I don't like that dirty effect. I don't mind when colors blend, but when they start looking dirty, I don't like that. So I'm going to do this whole, all this gold area is going to end up being painted over, and that will bring back, plus I lost the luster of the gold on the tissue paper. So in doing this, I'm bringing the shine back as well. So I'm being very heavy with the paint along these detail lines where the circles are. And then up there, I'm going to leave all those flecks clear as they are because I want to I want to keep that effect. So I'm putting a lot of paint right in that middle because, like I say, there's about a 3/16 of an inch gap where it's quite a crevice. And here you go. This was finished. It took me a long time, so I didn't want to bore you with it. But look at how effective that is now. It's brightened it up. It's made the gold pop forward, and that pattern underneath the circles go into the background. And I love that. That's what I wanted. So in between sessions, remember to keep the book fanned open. Even if you put baby powder on some of them, it still doesn't hurt because there's so much matte medium. So here's this other one that I want to touch up the gold. So because I dusted baby powder over it, I have to wipe that with a wet wipe to lift that back off. And I want to meticulously, and I won't show you all of it, but I want to go in and touch up all the areas that should be gold revealed that got covered from the tissue paper. So I'm going to give you a little start here with how I did it. Because I don't want to see all that frosty tissue paper. It's distracting me. And because the other one turned out so well, let's do the same with this one. So you have to have a small flat brush. And I'm going over the edges where all the tissue paper was torn off so that I disguise the edge of the tissue paper. And I'm going to give you a little close-up of how I started, and then I will just show you the finished result because this took a long time. I put some good music on and just got into my zone and meticulously went through it all. I didn't mind that it took a long time because that's just my happy place. I'm just showing you how I started, how I treated it. Again, a small flat brush is the best. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but I really wanted to bring out, I didn't like that the shine and shimmer of the gold got lost because of the tissue. So now look at the result. It was worth the effort. That's very Gustav Klimt, as far as I'm concerned, even though I don't like to copy him. That's the effect that it is, and it's quite dramatic. So I have one last spread to do, and I brought out all the prints that remind me most of the front spread because I wanted to start and end with the same vibe. So I'm just playing around with orientation here. So I use that. The piece on the right there is the other half of what I used on the front spread. And then I've got this, which was, I just absolutely adore that print. And then this one, all three of these I like. And I'm going to do a mix and match of them because they will work together. I'm just trying to decide with that middle section which part I want to use. And below my left hand, that end of that piece really did have some print on it. It just didn't show up very well, but it will show up once I glue it down. On the far left behind my, right there where my finger and the very edge of the page, that really will show up better once I glue it down. So what I was doing is trying to find the orientation, and then I'm cutting away what I need and not having excess tissue. And now I'm trying to decide what part of this second one I should use. I've decided instead of using the full section on the right, I'm going to slide that into the middle. And I'm just trying to decide where to cut it off. I don't really want everything to be so linear. The left section is linear. I feel like this one is better off on an angle, and it just makes it more interesting. So that's what I'm going to go with. I like how it goes off on an angle. And then this one here, the tissue just the print just disappears into the tissue, and I love that. So that's going to go on the far right. And I'm just finding out where to mark it and then cut it back. That I'm going to glue down first, and then I'll put, let me see, maybe I won't, maybe I'll do it second. But those are the three pieces. Yeah, I'm going to glue that down first, and I'm just marking off with water where I want to tear away because I don't want that straight edge of the tissue to show up anywhere. I want it to be organic. As usual, I'm speeding up all the boring parts. I'm really pleased with how this last spread worked and how the entire book has worked. I'm really delighted. And again, there's still at least one more video because I want to show where we can take this even further. So actually, yes, I correct myself. I will do the middle part first, and then I will let that right square cover it as it will, using that paint spreader to really get that center part of the spread firmly placed in the crevice. A lot of this dark navy right there is going to get hidden, but I didn't know how much, so I'm leaving it to let the other piece cover as it will. Now let's get the right section glued down. Sorry for the head, but I really had to get in there and line this up. Final piece. I like how the right fades to the middle and then to the left, which has got the lightest background, how it all just leads to this left part and the white in it. So I really enjoy how the dark fades to the light. And I like that wedge, that triangle in the middle there. That's kind of fun. Love this left page of the spread. Love it a lot. So just tearing away any excess towards the back, of course. Once that's fully dry, I will get scissors out and give a nice clean cut edge to the pages. So there's the last page, the last spread finished. All the colors are kind of incorporated in this one page. So here's the book. Each page is completely different. You could actually leave this book as it is and it would look just fine, but I want to embellish it further next week. So stay with me. And by the way, make sure you dust it with baby powder. Any of the pages, I actually went back and did it, all the pages, and then you fan it out and leave it overnight, even a few nights, and let it completely dry in the spine so that none of the pages stick together. So look at that. They look great fanned out like that on a bookshelf, by the way. I do that very often with my small journals. Why not? Why leave them shut when you can open them and expose them? Have a great day. See you next week when we finish this book. Thanks for coming.